Hello and welcome to Campaign Comrades, your favorite leftist gaming channel. Today is just a fun little video where the comrades have gathered to talk all things game genres, our likes, our dislikes. What are we rabid for? What are we tired of seeing? Like, what's the trend? We see like every year, has every single game at every single awards show or announcement showcase is just, it's all survival horror. It's all survival crafting.
It's all farming. It's all farming.
It's all farming.
Cozy farm games. That's all we got.
It's all indie Metroidvanias. It's all roguelike deck builders. And for the most part, I find myself disliking most of the trends that the industry gets stuck on, while still being totally fine and well served by my preferred genres. But it is annoying to see just the same thing over and over and over again. And this could maybe start a wider conversation that I know we've touched on back in like way back in like the earliest days of the channel history on the concept of game genres, is such a rat's nest of kind of general held beliefs, but nobody can actually pin down what these things are. A great example is how shitty the categories are, things like the Game Awards. It is, how do you define what an indie game is? How do you define, the fact that they pair sim and strategy together? What does family game mean, And outside of some of these, like, roguelikes that have defined mechanical things, and even the further along that these genres stay in the zeitgeist, the more diverse they get, which is a good thing, but that just makes defining these so much more difficult. Just look at Souls-like, right? When any game that comes out that has bonfires or dodge rolling and a stamina bar, everyone's debating, is it or isn't it a Souls-like, So those would have been, like roguelikes, specific, defined mechanical elements that you would think, okay, that's how we define a genre. But now it's like, no, it's got to have the certain tone. It's got to have the same method of storytelling. It's got to have similar imagery.
When we were going through building our lists, I was having a lot of trouble separating because, for me, it comes down to, is it a genre that I like? Or is it just a producer who makes games in that genre that I like? And I don't really like that genre outside of what that producer does.
I'm curious, as an outside from our actual decided categories, what is an example of that? I think that's
what I was going through, and I was thinking, do I love Metroidvanias, or do I really just like Metroid games primarily? Do I love platformers, or am I really just a huge Mario fan?
Okay, interesting.
Because that's why I left those off my list, because I don't think, from a broader perspective, I would be as willing to try as many of, for say, we were talking about the indie Metroidvanias. Not to say that I wouldn't try some of them, but for me, it's the Metroid, the space aspect,
space
and Samus.
Loneliness.
Samus, she's hot.
All right, so we all came prepared. We all did our homework. We have chosen our two favorite genres and our two least favorite, most hated, most reviled, faves and foes, let's say, in terms of gaming genres. And so rather than just all dumping them all one by one or doing all likes and all dislikes, we're going to basically share, each one of us is going to share a like and a dislike and then move on to the next person, and then we'll keep going. All right, so I'll start it off where my favorite genre that is unique to me amongst the group would be CRPGs. And it is a genre that appeals to me for a multitude of reasons. But it's an interesting one for myself because there are within it divisions that I like and that I don't like. I do not like real time with pause, and a lot of it comes down to a skill issue. I don't like the micromanaging if I'm gonna micromanage, which I actually like, let me do it in the turn-based version, right, where I can really get kind of granular with it. But for me, it is what makes the genre so special to me is the reactivity and immersion within the world. Part of that even originates with its perspective being kind of top-down or isometric experience, you feel yourself really taking in the world on a grander scale and then viewing how your character or your party is operating within it. But then there are also genres just because, and there's debate, does CRPG in this day stand for classic RPG or computer RPG? That also has some debate amongst it. But it being a predominantly PC space, systems can be more intense and can be more it can be more innovative and so much more processing power for complex interactions, whether it's mechanics like the Divinity games with environmental interactions, or story interactions, choice and consequence, that your choice on a seemingly innocuous quest at hour 5 will affect not just your ending, but the unfolding of 5 quests down, hours and hours down the line, and how these kind of interconnected webs can manifest. And I find that to be unique to this genre. It's not that choice and consequence is exclusive to CRPGs, but it is one where you can often feel them at their greatest stakes. And I like turn-based combat. It's weird. As I'm looking at mine, I'm like, yeah, my favorites are turn-based, but I love action games and I love real-time games. I don't like the middle ground. To me, it's like pick one or the other. I like action RPGs and I like turn-based RPGs, but CRPGs, because they're like one of the few types of games that I willingly seek out to lose myself in for 100, 150, 200 hours, right? They're these massive experiences that are held up by this intricate web. And so the creative appreciator in me is like, wow, how did they develop this? How do they scaffold this and then keep it all from crumbling under its own weight? So when you get a CRPG that is effective and kind of succeeds on those promises of choice and consequences and interconnectivity, it's unlike any experience you'll ever have.
Well, that's the type of thing. So like, I know Baldur's Gate has a lot of that, like the spread of choice, and lets you like really like build your own path. But for me, something I really enjoy is when it feels like you're breaking a game and you're like, ooh, I'm doing something that's wrong. And then you get to a point and it's like, oh, the developers like planned for this, or they expected me to do something along these lines at some point.
Like, that's what I'm talking
about. For me,
like
where the thought process of that would be like Mario Odyssey. There'd be times where I'd be like, ooh, look at me. I'm like using my platforming skill to like go an unintended route. And then you get there and there'd be like a giant pile of coins. You'd be like, you fuckers knew I'd get over here.
And so with CRPGs, it's just, again, the fact that they will work in these wild solutions to these often mundane problems, again, just is so impressive from a creative standpoint on how reactive that they are able to make this simulated world. It just, is really cements its immersive qualities.
Is Baldur's Gate peak for you in CRPG world?
I mean, probably. Like, it's hard to say that it's not like, the modern classic, right? Yeah. But I really like the Pathfinder games, a little bit more crunchy. They started off as real time with pause, but when I got into them, they had included turn-based modes, so they were much more enjoyable, if admittedly suffering from pacing problems, because they were, at least Kingmaker was not originally outlined as, it was intended as a real-time with pause game, so combat would be happening faster. So you fight everything, including trash mob fights in turn-based mode, your 150-hour game is going to balloon to 300 hours. So it has some issues, but in terms of like build crafting, I think the Pathfinder games exceed Baldur's Gate. But in terms of story and world design interconnectivity, I think Baldur's Gate edges them out. Owlcat, the makers and publishers of the Pathfinder games, are probably my favorite CRPG developers. Divinity, or Larian with Divinity and Baldur's Gate Baldur's Gate as a singular one is probably above it for me, but the Pathfinder games and the VK games from Owlcat, they have more things that I like. The Divinity games are cool, and you see the DNA of what Baldur's Gate became in them, but they're a little bit... I never found the stories as appealing in the Divinity games.
Do the Knights of the Old Republic games fall into this category, or are they more...
Probably, yeah. They probably... You could maybe find some people who would debate it, but most would probably agree. And that is a real-time with pause system, but it's one that I actually found accessible. Part of it is I played it on Switch, so I had native controller support. I know people love the original Dragon Age games, Dragon Age Origins being the main one. That game I would have loved if I could have played it turn-based. I white-knuckled my way through that game with, real-time with pause and loathed the combat. But just the world was incredibly well designed. But yeah, I think that's where I'm at. So number one for me, unique to me on the podcast here, is probably CRPGs. My number one dislike has probably got to be survival crafting. And they just seem tedious.
The man is not a Minecraft player.
I am not. We have friends who are big Minecraft heads and have spent years of their lives together.
See, I've always carried the thought that this classification of game, I do this in real life. I am survival crafting every day that I'm awake and alive.
So you more than most people, because that's what your job is to. We're all surviving every day, but you are crafting for a living, basically.
Yeah. It's one of those I don't want to come home from work and sit down and be like, time to continue to work.
And while the idea of something like Pal World with Pokemon with guns is very funny and memeable to me, but the thought of putting them into indentured servitude to chop down trees to get me, resources to build, a sweatshop factory for them to make me the guns to use is so many steps to getting me to the thing that I actually enjoy.
Theory for Pal World that they realized the game was going to be too boring. So that's why they added Pokemon with guns and controversy and make people want to play it thinking they're getting edgy Pokemon, but it's really just another survival crafting game.
And to me, it's gamifying just I've got the little bit of the, the OCD or the autistic, chip in my brain, but just not that version of it.
No, you don't want to wake up in the morning, log into your computer and punch trees for 3 hours so you can build a virtual house.
So many games are exercises in repetition, right? And I find myself chafing against even games and genres that I do like where things get stale like that. But that is the core.
Farming. Just farming in general. It's farming the game. That's my least favorite part of most games I play, is having to farm for experience points or resources of some sort. It happens in all of them.
I don't generally hate farming for experience or anything like that in an RPG. But the second you make actual farming a mechanic where it's I have to go pick my crops because it's 6 o'clock, and if I wait too long, they're going to rot in the ground, and I got to make sure that they're watered properly. Again, I could just do that in real life. I could go out and make my own plants, and kill them in real life instead.
Yeah, yeah. But
and then if I'm successful, I actually get vegetables that I won't eat.
So you've actually done something productive if you are successful. Yeah, but so to me, it's just exercises in tedium to the nth degree, where that's the core experience. And for somebody who just wants a brain off, because it's not I hesitate to say brain off, because what you just described, Matt, is structures in a very structured version of management of. There is a lot of mental thought going into.
Don't you dare tell a Stardew Valley player that they're going brain off.
But it's about that they invest front load maybe developing patterns and routines, and then once that's set, then it becomes brain off. Listen to a podcast type game, and to me, it's for the most part, there are a couple exceptions. I've been listening to podcasts while playing Dragon Quest III HD 2D and find that an enjoyable experience just because of how frequent random encounters are. It makes that part of tedium less tedious. But there are enough other things in that game for me to enjoy that I can get past what I'm about to say, is that if a game or any type of media encourages me to engage with something else At the same time, it's proof it's not worth my time. It's why most modern TV is fucking slop, because it's designed to be second screen viewing.
Yeah,
it is designed to be on in the background.
Of all modern TV shows being designed to like just be passively received while you're watching.
Ready? Are you ready for them to make a Lord of the Rings TV show version of second screen slop now that Netflix is going to own?
Okay, in just a
Warner
brief
Brothers?
aside, did you see that Paramount was considering like a
Yes,
hostile
I did.
takeover?
Yes, I did. Which it's bad, consolidation in any fashion in fashion is bad, but I'd prefer Paramount take them over than fucking Netflix.
Yeah.
Both are bad.
It was
Both
the
are
second
bad
shockingly,
outcomes.
yes.
Yeah, the second the Netflix news came out, and they're like, we intend to still like keep releasing these in theaters, but like we're going to be like reducing their like theatrical window. I was like, ooh, that's like a promise basically to be like, we're going to be ramping this down rapidly until it's straight to Netflix. It's also hilarious to me that includes HBO. And I saw a joke where it was like the guy who made $6 billion changing HBO Go to HBO Max to Max back to HBO Max. Right. Sitting there writing names down for the new Netflix HBO combo.
Hell yeah. That guy's got the life. But yeah, so survival crafting gets a big old double thumbs down for me. All right, Andrew, hit us with your number one like while I go get a cough drop.
All right, so I'm gonna follow the lead Ben set here with speaking to the genre that I most like, that I think is also most different from the rest of y'all here, and that's sports games. Sports games are one of my absolute favorite genres. They provide a wonderful power fantasy, which is something as a kind of fan of frictionless gaming to some extent, we'll say. The power fantasy of sports games is excellent.
Okay, but let's take a pause here for a second. The power fantasy used to be a lot better in like the NBA 2K games, when it was just build a character, by 20 games into your rookie season, you're a fucking all-star. You're dictating to the team that drafted you that you want to go to other teams already. Now it's like, okay, I've got to slog through a rookie season where I'm not getting minutes because I don't have enough sliders unless I pay them points to be able to fix my fucking shit character. No. I'm 6'10" and I can't fucking dunk. Explain this to me, NBA.
Every guard's out rebounding me.
I distinctly remember building. I think it was in like 2K14, and I built a like 6'10" like defensive athlete specialist. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this is going to be great. I'm just going to fucking dunk on people, block shots. And like, as an athlete, I couldn't make it up the fucking court. I was the slowest motherfucker I've ever seen. And I was like, oh, cool. I don't get to do any of the like the fast break layups or like get good dunks. And all of my dunks suck because they're just like one-handed little shitty dunks. Like, what was the point of building this character? I'm going to go back to building 6'5" point guards.
Listen, I don't disagree. The power fantasy has been eroded a little bit through
They're making it too real.
Yeah, well, they're making it too real, and they're also monetizing it by making it like impossible unless you dedicate your life to it to actually.
Yeah, did you buy the deluxe edition? Here's a free 200 stat points to spend on your character.
Yeah, exactly. But the other thing that sports games offer is a 2-player mode, both locally and online still. And, playing couch co-op, any sports game is.
I was gonna say, the last time I was
one
down
of the
in
best things.
Brooklyn, we were playing 2K on the couch.
Absolutely, 2K on the couch is great. Like, some of my favorite gaming memories.
The day that they take that away from us and like paywall that.
I'll be very sad.
It's like something that they've had like written down on a sheet for like several years.
You got to download another 75 gigabytes for the split screen mode.
Yeah, the couch co-op mode.
Well, it's not split screen, at least in 2K.
Most sports games, I think you don't. But some of my favorite memories in general come from playing sports games, couch co-op. Slugfest is one of the greatest games ever made.
Goated.
NFL Streets, NBA
SSX
Street
Tricky.
Games, SSX Tricky. There are so many great options.
They don't make that style of game anymore. They like make arcadey
not
sports
entirely
games,
true. NBA Street's making a comeback.
Yeah.
All right, if it does,
what's it called? NBA
I will buy
The
one.
Run?
Yeah.
Day one. But there was a version of one that you and I played remotely one time, Andrew. It was like where they were like kind of like Chiba-fied. They all had like big bobblehead.
Yeah, there was the big head mode in one of the more recent. Oh no, it was like a free just 3v3 download, right?
Yeah, it was like
Yeah.
it was truly like an arcadey one. It was not like a mode from
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
regular 2K. I forget what it was called. So even those versions just suck nowadays. But like NFL and NBA Street were like two of like my most played games on PS2. I always had times where I enjoyed sports games, and during my college years where I like probably personally played and bought the fewest games of my life, those were like the mainstays, because it was somebody always had a copy of NHL or 2K. We didn't play a lot of Madden or MLB. We played mostly probably NHL, 2K, and then FIFA probably coming in at the bottom, but NHL and 2K. Maybe that's because I went to school in New England, in Massachusetts, so lots of NHL heads. Yeah, we got really good. Like I had an unblockable, perfectly 100% guaranteed unblockable penalty shot, as well as a breakaway. Very simple, not too difficult, but like just a simple dangle, just always gonna work no matter what.
I have some beautiful memories of NCAA football when I was in college, and someone went through and meticulously built our entire roster on there, and then like went through and gave everyone like their attribute. Like I had a 99 spin move.
They did it cause any drama on who was the highest rated?
Yes,
Of course.
because you can't have a team full of egos without people all of a sudden being mad that they don't have a 99 speed. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, you have a 95.
That's fun though.
Sports games offer a lot. I think they speak to what I like a lot about gaming in general. That's
I also
community,
think they
playing
speak
together.
to, like, at least we all three of us have been athletes at some point in our life, and like it does like help you at least regain a little bit of that, like, I used to do that, I could do that.
That's the power fantasy aspect of it that still exists.
You trick yourself into thinking, like maybe I could have done that, but then you're like, I'm actually fine with just recreating it here in the game. I was never going to do that. This is just as fun without taking years off my life,
especially for something like
from repetitive head injuries.
I was gonna say, especially something like football, where you can't really just go out and like play football for fun.
Go
like,
do an intramural flag football league.
Yeah, that's your only option.
Compared to something like basketball, where you can just like get one friend and go and play, one-on-one.
But here, the older we get, the more opportunities you'll actually have to play group sports. It's
True.
like when you're a kid or when you're old and you're trying to regain your youth.
You can join men intramural leagues where
absolutely. With all the exhibitionist
it's a very big
Jewish
spread
uncles.
Too. You get the drunk uncles who want to relive the glory days that weren't as good as they remember them being. You've got the former athletes who stand out amongst everyone else because they can actually move and do things. I remember in college, I got invited to the Burlington Men's Lacrosse League because they needed goalies, which is essentially
which is exactly what happened in high school. We need goalies. Washburn, you're playing lacrosse now. History repeats itself.
Yeah, it's almost like there's always a shortage of people to play the shittiest position.
Right. Instead of shitty positions, what's a shitty game genre that you don't like?
This is, I'm
gonna spark some controversy with this one.
I'm gonna spark some controversy, but I admit I'm a vibe player of video games, and one video game genre that I just don't mesh with at a vibe level is Metroidvanias. And, listen, I'm fully willing to admit this is partially a skill issue on my behalf, because I do not like having to remember random things and where they are. I don't take notes as I play video games, as others on this podcast may or may not be doing. And it just...
This guy never built an entire map on a graph paper grid.
No, I'm not sketching out maps in my head. I don't remember shit. Like, I leave one room, I forget immediately what that room looks like. I'm suddenly lost, and I hate myself. I hate this game. I shut it off in a rage, and I never look at it again. That's what Metroidvanias do to me. I'm not a fan. Kudos to everyone who has the mental wherewithal to play them and enjoy them. It's too much friction. Just not a good vibe for...
I will say, in defense of Metroidvanias. There are some that are a lot smoother than others when it comes to remembering things or how the game lays out. So like Metroid Zero Mission was a Game Boy Advance remake of the original NES Metroid, that it's got a map. It'll, like, you finish something, it'll then point to a section on the map, be like, you need to go here, and give you guidance. It's the predominant way to actually play the first Metroid game, because I'm sick and I'll play the original NES Metroid, but like I would never recommend anyone do that.
Because we also live in the area of the internet and don't have to rely on like the Nintendo hotline to help you out when you
that was
stuck.
the golden day. Calling the Nintendo hotline with problems.
No, the real thing was give me the strategy book that also is essentially an art book as well. That's the preferred.
I used to have I had so many of those growing up. My favorite was the Ocarina of Time one that I would flip through and just look at all the cool monster designs.
Yeah, that's definitely a superior era. But like, yeah, I'm also not a Metroidvania enjoyer, and I think that a lot of the friction that's involved just comes down to like bad design of like accessibility things. Like it's a marked improvement of something that should be basically standard. I know Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown was praised by the fact that like you come across something that you can't unlock, but you know you want to remember it. It lets you like take a screen grab in the game and like post it on the map. And like that's my problem. It's like even like, you know, say classic or even somewhat newer Metroid games, the maps themselves, even when they exist, they fucking suck and they're hard to read. You know, it's just, again, it's pure accessibility that they miss the bar on the things that they try to do in that regard, so that the friction feels artificial and it feels like it disrespects my time versus offering worthwhile incentive. Okay, I remembered to go back here and I get 5 more missiles. You know, that's, to me, is never been worth the frustration. You see that there are strides being made in the genre, and that like indie games, I almost said India. I don't know that Indian Metroidvanias are breaking new ground, but yeah, indie Metroidvanias are doing more with the model and are making both strides in accessibility, but also valuing your time in the sense of viewing it more as exploration rather than like checklisting and pure repetition. Again, to me, the biggest thing is, like with my dislike of survival crafting, is exercises in tedium.
Yeah, agreed. That's 100% a big part of it for me. I will say, there's a part of me that does want to enjoy them. I think the Metroid games are like super cool and I want to play them, but I'm never going to get like beyond 2 hours into it.
It's like, I love the atmosphere that Metroid produces, whether it's like going full on horror like Metroid Dread or just the feelings of loneliness and oppression. Like I like those vibes. I would love to like Hollow Knight and Silksong. Aesthetically, I think they're outstanding, and I would love to try to, you know, overcome its gauntlet challenges.
I think Hollow Knight also provides you a secondary issue of its, you know, also fairly intensive platforming, which is also not your favorite genre.
Right. I mean, Metroidvanias from their earliest have plenty of platforming as part of that's a part of the DNA.
Yeah, but Hollow Knight in particular it's got a lot of like the Celeste style platforming where you've got to be, you know, stringing together a lot of perfect inputs. You know,
Celeste, at least Celeste will give you like a baby mode that like will at least let you finish the game. But yeah, that's a big thing too. But that's a core part of its DNA. So that is a barrier for me, and it's personal. That's a personal barrier. It's not like an objective truth that, you know, that those things are bad. The only objective thing that I think is bad is just things like the map designs often suck. Like, yes, the worlds are meant to be interconnected and hard to parse and difficult to manage, but then they give you a map that then is just useless. You know, I hate almost every single Metroid map I've ever seen. All right, Matt.
All right. Starting with my number one, like, I had a little bit of trouble initially going through this, you know, separating, like I was saying earlier, you know, producers from genres, because like I was going to originally put Metroidvania down as one that I like, but then I realized that's primarily just Metroid games that I like, not the entire genre, so that's not necessarily fair to, you know, say that whole genre. And then I was sitting there, I was like, well, I love action RPGs, but like that's also such a broad stance and topic to go through, you know, because action RPGs can be Diablo, and I fucking hate Diablo.
Right, right.
So we narrowed it down a little bit, and I was toing between two particular action-style combat games with character action games and Souls-likes, but I had to go with Souls-likes because that's kind of my bread and butter.
He's the Souls daddy of the channel.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm the one who's walked all of the teammates through their harder moments. I've been in the Discord chat, providing sage guidance and advice. I've been the one who's pushed people to try these games. I will say my first experience with Dark Souls 1 is just kind of that's a magical touchstone moment for me as far as gaming goes. As one of those okay, I am good enough to play these games and not get completely angry and frustrated at everything like I thought I would. Because for me, these games are all about patience and being able to separate, the ego from the body in a Buddhist sense.
Yeah, it's a meditative experience for him.
To be able to sit there and run into a boss fight for, an hour and not make any progress and realize, okay, I can do this. I just need to take a break and come back later because right now I am not in the right mental state. I like the atmosphere that these games provide. I love the combat systems, the ability to build craft the way I want to play the game. I'm a big fan of, they put it in the game, it's not breaking anything. It's not cheese. It's me using the mechanics of the game the way they're intended. I don't sit here and gatekeep people behind, well, you didn't do it, naked, bare fists only, soul level 1. No Estus, so you're not a real gamer. If you need to beat Elden Ring with summons, guess what? You beat the game with the mechanic the game provides you.
Beat it the same way the game's creator did. So
Listen, shout out and bow and thank you to Matt because I did play Bloodborne when it came out because it looked fucking cool.
Bloodborne's fucking awesome.
I got my ass handed to me.
Because you thought it was a horror game first and foremost?
100%.
It is.
And I got my ass handed to me, and I was like, okay.
Yeah, you like games, every player walked into Yarnum and just got ganked by the squad of people at that bonfire with the dogs.
Mm-hmm. I sure did. And I returned that game to the red box I rented it from 12 hours later, and I said, I'm never going back. But you brought me there, and
I think what was your first? That was Sekiro that I walked you through? Elden Ring?
Elden Ring was the first. And then that got me hooked. So I appreciate you expanding my horizons here.
Say since I knew that it would be at the top of your list, I didn't include it in mine, but it has definitely become one of my top
and it's
genres.
Not to say that every game in this genre, because it's become saturated with everyone needs to make their version of a Souls-like,
and so it's like your first point is that, are you a Souls-like fan or are you a From Software fan? That's an interesting distinction.
There are enough other Souls-likes that I enjoy, but the interesting aspect to them is how much they bleed into other game genres now. Like a lot of people, Stellar Blade, for an example. A lot of people consider Stellar Blade to be some form of Sekiro Souls-like. And I look at it more as a Nier Automata character action game with slight, parry mechanics involved. Hollow Knight, people consider Hollow Knight a 2D Souls-like, with Metroidvania aspects. It's really broadened out into a lot of basically any game that kills you and has action combat is now a Souls-like.
It is definitely one of my top genres that I would say I'm just past the midway point in my From Software journey. I still have Dark Souls 2 and 3 and Bloodborne left, and I have to be in the right mood to play Bloodborne. I haven't had the desire to play a truly dark horror fantasy version of it is what really's kind of kept me at bay for the time being. But I have expanded out and played a lot more true Souls-likes outside of From themselves. Liza P was great. I really loved Another Crab's Treasure. That was fantastic. And so I like to see, I like the truer, it goes back to what we started this whole conversation with, is genres, when they get too saturated and too big, they start bleeding out into ways that is good for creativity and that people are not feeling as restricted to pull elements from different things. And so it makes for better games, but the classification, the taxonomy of the industry itself is just a minefield of less than helpful takes, right? And we're contributing to that here at Campaign Comrades.
Yeah,
got that right.
Well, it's I've been playing Neo, and Neo when it came out initially was considered, under the broad term of Souls-like, and it's clearly got Souls-like elements to it. It's got a stamina bar type system that you got to measure your combat and dodging with, but it's also got a lot of like Team Ninja's other, action games built into it. It's got a lot of that Ninja Gaiden feel. It's got a lot of other aspects of other games that don't make it a pure Souls-like experience outside of the fact that a lot of the maps are dark and dingy and, hard to read sometimes and figure shit out because it's an old game. For my first dislike, that falls into building sims for me. I've never in my life been a zoo tycoon, roller coaster tycoon, aquarium tycoon, or like The Sims. I fucking hate The Sims. Don't ever put me anywhere near any of these city skylines. Like, I don't need to be doing city planning. That's civil engineer shit. That's for the people who live in rocks for a living. So the facility I've been doing work at is primarily civil engineers, and one of the workers came up to me and was like, hey, I know we were supposed to like move a bunch of dirt into the end of the area you're working, and we were supposed to do that like 3 weeks ago. But the two groups that are supposed to be doing that got into a fight over whose dirt was going to get moved, because each group was like, no, I want to move your dirt there because it's not my dirt, so it's free. And I was sitting there, I was like, this is what you guys argue about? Fucking piles of dirt? Like, I'll give you some free piles of dirt. Come to my fucking house and help me dig out a trench.
It's literally like they're the submentals on the playground. They are. This is my dirt.
I mean,
my dirt's the best dirt. It's
in engineering. There is the hierarchy of the basic three of electrical engineers are the turbo autistic geniuses who know everything and can't be beaten. The mechanical engineers are the people who are like just below them in their like level of autism, but like don't understand theoretical garbage. And then there's the civil engineers who are like, I like rocks.
I like to make pipes that make liquid go from one end of town to the other.
I like to say I'm going to bury something 8 feet deep and then bury it 6 feet deep so that when people come to do future work, they fuck it up and it's not my fault. But I don't like this genre of games. I find we've said it before, the tedium aspect. For me, it just more or less comes down to like the turnout of fun isn't enough or like worthwhile to the effort put into what you're doing. Like, I'm cool, I built a zoo and there are animals in it. I'd rather go to an actual zoo and see actual animals, Congratulations, I built a flying death trap roller coaster. If I wanted to get into roller coaster design, I could have. It's, right an offshoot of my degree, and I specifically don't because that's an extremely stressful job that involves, people's lives that you put right on the brink of death.
That's what makes it fun.
But yeah, it's I definitely don't really see the appeal of these games. They are like, I feel like, at most, people, it's like spending hours and hours and hours trying to deal with systems. I guess it scratches a little bit of the itch of it's almost puzzly in a sense of getting things to work in tandem with one another. But at the end, rather than like the rush of beating a boss that you couldn't for so long, or tactically thinking out this combat puzzle or whatever that you were on the brink of death, you're just, at most, you're going to get a as traffic. You achieve no congestion traffic on your thoroughfares, through your city.
Just more lane, bro. Just one more lane.
Just nice.
No, you just put in your 7th roundabout and you finally found out what perfection looks like.
I think like I could maybe understand the engagement in the process, but yes, I think your description is the best one. The what you put into it to what you get out of it just doesn't match up to me. And probably some people are like, I don't care where I get to. It's the journey above the destination type thing. That like I enjoy the process rather than the product.
Oh, and this is like for sure. I'm not sitting here and I'm not going to pass judgment on anyone who enjoys things that I don't enjoy. Congratulations. I'm happy for you that you sat there for 4 hours and built your roller coaster, but just really not my thing primarily. Like if you ever meet someone who's played like 1,000 hours in The Sims, like that person has absolutely
every single millennial white woman.
Yeah. That person has absolutely built you in their world, and every time you have wronged them, they have trapped them in some...
Tortured you.
Yeah.
Do you think I do think people play that to do.
The millennial white women do it in The Sims. The millennial white men do it in Minecraft. They have breeding farms of villagers, that they just keep underground and never seeing the light of day. They're recreating the Stanford prison experiment in Minecraft. I
didn't know you could breed villagers.
You can breed everything in Minecraft.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I kind of spoiled what was my second favorite genre. As I'm thinking, I'm like, do I really want to just do all turn-based games? Because when I play games, I don't like to play too many turn-based stuff. I like to mix it up and do action. But again, I knew you'd do things like Souls-likes, and I love action RPGs. But and again, to me, that is too diffuse of a term. So other things that I like are turn-based tactics games, and this is different even than like turn-based grid RPGs. I'm talking like pure tactics things like XCOM.
Does Fire Emblem fall into this category?
To me, it's on the borderline. It is in a lot of ways, yes, it is, but in others, it has too many other elements in it that, again, I loved the idea for this topic, but then as we get into it, I'm just like, yeah, we can't define genres. It's a losing task at every stretch. It's like, yes, you could say that it's this and this. People would probably classify Fire Emblem as a strategy RPG. Okay. That it has too much RPG elements where turn-based tactics don't have as high as many RPG elements, even though there is things like character growth and stat allocation or ability upgrades or something like that. But it's a vibes based thing on, yes, this is not as much of an RPG, but a lot of times they revolve around similar mechanical things, grid based, turn-based tactics, usually with cover mechanics, is a big one that again comes from XCOM. And so like XCOM 2, obviously like the GOAT, the absolute GOAT. But like probably after XCOM, my favorite one that I've played was it's one of the worst titles in video game history, but a fantastic game. And let me see if I can remember the whole thing. So it's Warhammer 40,000, Chaos Gate, Demon Hunters, and phenomenal, amazing game. And it's a game that I kind of want to go back and play again because they've actually added a bunch of content since I played it relatively close to launch.
Didn't it also run like ass for you?
It eventually did, yeah. The final fight I was afraid it was going to crash during the final fight. The frame rate was abysmal towards the end. It was a huge fight because you fight Mortarion, the demon Primarch of the Death Guard, and you like have two different squads, one that's in like a temple or something fighting him, and others on the outside that are just fighting waves of enemies that are just you just can't let them breach this point. And when it would then switch, so it's keeping track of two maps simultaneously, and as the turn order would come up, it would swap from one to the other. And just when it would swap to the more open one with the waves of enemies, just frame rate would just plummet into the fucking floor. And it was rough. I was worried I was not going to be able to finish it. But I love that game. But the simple fact that you can have dreadnoughts on your team now was a huge incentive for me to want to go back and play. But it was cool because it had it does have some little kind of management. A lot that's another consistent theme is that they will often have these little management elements to it. So that does scratch an itch that I find enjoyable in terms of it's another way to play strategically. You are trying to boost resources, efficiency, for buffs, for new materials, character building, whatever. And so XCOM has you're building your base and you'll fill it out with different modules, and it's like you can get a bonus if you have this one next to this one, like injured team members will heal faster, or you can train them to be like the psychic one or other things like that. And so the Demon Hunters, you have recruiting other Grey Knights, building them up. You've got this map that you are managing to make sure that the titular chaos gates don't open. And so you're just trying to manage how you're dealing with threats. And it has this level of tension to it that I always found really enjoyable. It was always keeping me engaged and on my seat, and feels like I'm teetering, whether it's in a battle or in these management kind of modes. These games thrive on, you feel like you're teetering on the edge of overwhelming success or overwhelming defeat. that it can go in one way or the other, so that every little choice you make feels like you're either a genius and you've solved this insolvable puzzle to thread this needle of, here, I need to knock down the threat level in this one that will then let me get to this one. And there's so many moving pieces that you feel like a big brain genius. But then it's also the adrenaline of one wrong move and it's over. It's never been more over, you know? So like when I was playing Chaos Gate Demon Hunters, I did let one Chaos Gate open. Once it's open, it's open. If you let 5 open, it's game over. You lose. And it's the type of thing where it's a run ender. There's like almost, unless you are meticulous with saves, you may have to go back like hours and hours and hours if you're going to do that. But more likely than not, it's just the run is over. You got to start from scratch. But so like the threat of that happening after, as I'm learning systems, it was just like, well, I'm never letting another Chaos Gate open. Never. Not happening. And I pulled that off and it felt so good. So it's just this rewarding for figuring out these puzzles, for making decisions that feel like they matter. And that's a through line between my two favorite genres. It's one that I almost put on this list, but like narrative-based adventure games.
Yeah.
I like those where it makes your choices feel impactful. That's like kind of my biggest, as I'm thinking about this, my biggest thing. Games I know you'll never play, Andrew, even though I wish you would.
No,
I've said
Andrew needs to join Blessing from Kind of Funny. 2026 is going to be Tactical 2026. He's just going to play a bunch of tactics games.
Hell yeah. I'm already losing my voice here. I'm still getting over a cold.
Where do you put 13 Sentinels with respect to this? Is 13 Sentinels kind of in this category for you?
No.
Is it just turn-based?
It's because it's technically not turn-based, even though it kind of gets close to that.
Visual.
I guess it isn't turn-based. You're right.
It's art. It is the combat is technically a real-time strategy, but it basically devolves into turn-based. It's like things will happen in real time until the next person that's available, and then it's basically time stops in it. You have as much time as you need to plan their turn, and then just time after everybody's taken a turn. Vanillaware's most recent game,
Unicorn Overlord.
That is more of a aside from like the individual fights, the maps play out in more like traditional RTS on a smaller scale. But no, the majority of that's a visual novel. But then again, feels like it doesn't have choice and consequence. It doesn't have consequence. It has choice in the sense of how you're moving through the story. Again, we're not going to get into that. That's going to be the whole discussion in a couple weeks. But yeah, let's go with my last dislike, which as I'm moving through here, it's a lot of we don't like simulation games here.
Yeah, yeah.
We like immersive sims. I know Matt and I like immersive sims, but like I don't like racing games. And I like racing sims even worse. It's the similar thing of like it's just a personal interest. It's the same reason why people like racing games is the reason why you like sports games. It's a power fantasy type thing of I get to, in a way that's not really true to life, experience in some capacity the nice fancy car that I'll never get. I get to race on these racetracks and prove my skill. So in that way, I understand more the appeal to other people for the true sim ones. But then something like the arcade racers that Mike loves, like the Forza Horizons, I was like, fuck, I have zero interest in that. Unless it's car combat.
Car combat, yeah.
I could get into that,
Hell yeah.
I can respect the hell out of someone who puts the time, money, and effort into building a legit sim rig with force feedback and all the bells and whistles, fucking surround screens. I can respect someone who gets into it that much, just because I know how much how good it must feel for them as their build comes together, and how cool it must feel when you're finally all done. You've got your racing seat and your wheel with force feedback, your pedals with force feedback. You got the kicking.
You're getting closer to what it feels like to drive the actual car, and they are. We all watched the Gran Turismo movie that, they're like, he's got more hours on this track than any professional rider combined, type of thing. And I'm like, yeah, there's a little bit of a difference, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I get it.
Totally invalid.
I get it, but if I'm doing that, I'm going whole hog and going to flight sims, because that's truly something I can't experience at all.
But
there's a difference.
Get your pilot's license.
But that's an actual difference. Part of getting a pilot's license is logging sim hours.
Yeah.
You know,
But
like
that's
that
also
is
like
that.
a legitimate sin.
No, but that has legitimate crossover that like it would be part of the actual experience. Like that has more direct application to the real thing.
For sure.
But, you know, if we're doing a flight sim, you know what we're all doing. Moving on, folks.
Yeah, moving on. All right, so I'm gonna reverse the order. I'm gonna go with my other negative genre and then go positive, because my negative or disliked genre here is a little bit similar to Metroidvanias, but it's platformers.
Andrew just hates me. He hates the things that make me happy.
Does
Here's
he
the thing.
hate joy, folks?
I'm
Does
not
he
a
hate
baby.
simple joy.
I'm not a baby. Okay, I'm an adult man.
Yeah,
I don't want to play.
I'd like you to see.
platformer.
I'd like to see you beat the Mario final run in Mario 3D World. Bet
I
you
probably
can't.
can't. I probably can't. Listen, once again, there's probably a skill issue component to this.
I know for me, it's a skill issue. I find them uniquely difficult in
I'd like
ways.
You beat
3D
it.
platformers. 3D
Yeah.
platformers.
you beat it, Ben. I'd like to see Andrew beat the Astrobot final.
Those were fun. I don't know. For some reason that those didn't Astrobot I found way more fun than I have any other platform.
Yeah, Astrobot has done it the best in my opinion. And like, listen, I love OG Mario. It was the first, like, one of the first games on the Game Boy I had. But as in my gamer mind now, I don't want to play platformers. I just don't. I get bored. You get to a certain point in platforming where it's like, I've made jumps before. I've jumped on this guy previously. Like,
Well, I think that's why Astrobot was so much better than something like a Mario, a 3D Mario, is that
Blasphemy.
the stages were are so much shorter and more condensed. Like I hate an open world Mario. Like
yeah, no.
like if you're gonna do it, it's got to be stage based because the pacing is key. You know, keeping it fresh that way. But then you're getting a new ability. Like every stage is different even when they're repeating abilities. But every stage is different in Astrobot because you've got some new fun toy to play with and interact in different ways. Whereas
You telling me that all the Cappy abilities don't make you happy? You don't
No,
like
they don't.
taking over the soul and ability of a sentient being
of a stack of Goombas, no, I don't.
or a frog?
And it's also because the controls of any Nintendo game are completely obtuse. They are taking a baby game and artificially inflating its difficulty by making the worst control schemes known to man.
That's a huge skill issue.
They fucking suck. They're terrible.
Some of the tightest controlling platforming you'll ever do is Mario Odyssey.
Odyssey was Wii, right?
Odyssey is Switch.
There's a Switch version. Yes, I know it's on Switch.
No, it's only Switch.
I didn't know if it started.
Galaxy.
It was one of
Galaxy was the
Galaxy is Wii.
Yeah. No, I didn't. I played through, finished Odyssey. A big dislike from me.
not a fan. On the exact opposite
You guys are gonna
side.
piss off the Sonic fandom somehow.
Good.
Well,
Good. Bring it on. Bring it on.
Guess what? They're all babies. Anyways,
I'd love for them to yell at me in their Rouge the Bat cosplays. Definitely show me that.
They're still upset about the fact that they didn't get a nomination for Best Adaptation with Sonic 3 this year.
What else do they have to hang their hats on?
Sonic Crossworlds, baby.
Yeah.
That got a nomination. It got 2 nominations. It got
Yeah,
nominations.
I think it was in Sports Game and Family Game.
For racing and family, I think. I know family. I'm not sure about racing.
All right. Well, fuck those baby games. One of my favorite genres is for adults, and that is horror action games. On the exact opposite side of the spectrum, we like gore, we like blood, we like guts. I like to sweat on my couch and feel like a scared little bitch, and that's what action horror does for me. I know neither of you are fans here. I am a horror fan in general as a genre. It is one of my favorites.
Are you going to come over and try Resident Evil 4?
I absolutely want to. Yes. That is, when I try it, that will be the game I'm trying, without a doubt. Being in Leon's shoes, walking into the village, mwah, I can't wait. I hope it makes me pee my pants.
If I give you, is it RE8 with the big lady?
It's Village. That's Village.
Yeah, that's 8.
Village.
Yeah. That's also got a VR mode.
Really?
Yep.
I didn't really. I forgot that that's just included in the game.
I would do that just to do just to do the meme of staring up as she sits on me.
But I think horror is a great genre overall. I like feeling scared. I like the emotional intensity that's often accompanying the genre in general. And I think horror games really allow you to feel immersed in these often unrealistic or, not anything you could experience in real life scary situations. Alien Isolation, the Resident Evil games, Dead Space. Dead Space is a fantastic
Okay, but does Alien
game.
Isolation count in the broader
As
category
action?
that you're speaking of? Because is it
That's
more
fair.
survival?
That one definitely is much more of a survival horror game than it is an action horror, because you are pretty much running from.
If you're a real fan, you would have
Xenomorph.
played the Callisto Protocol and defended it. Dead Space is one of the ones that, like, Dead Space and RE4 were like the two that I expected you to make us play, and ones that I would like be the most willing to play. And again, it's one of those genres where part of me sees the appeal. It's the same reason of what I just said about why I like tactics. The tactics games is that at any point you feel like I'm about to do something like fucking cool as hell and overcome these, horrors beyond my comprehension, or it's all gonna end in blood and gore. That it's never been more over. So the adrenaline rush of walking the knife's edge is definitely, I understand that appeal. It's just, I for my entertainment, I don't actively try to seek out things that make me scared.
It's fair. I do. And so that's why
I can get that feeling from other games.
Yeah, fair.
I can get the feeling that's good from other games.
Absolutely.
Without the bad part. All right, Matt, you wanted to continue the snake? He did bad.
He did dislike like, so I should go like dislike and end on sadness.
Yeah, end on pain.
So for my second like, again, I was initially, tasked with sitting here like topics are broad. Like I really like JRPGs, but that's a huge blanket that opens up.
Not to mention, it's racist. Don't let Yoshi P hear you say that.
Yeah, but then was it Yuji Naka who thinks it's the other way?
Yeah. No, it's a fraught term. People are like, yeah, whatever.
So Ben made me shorten it a little bit and take it down one notch and add a qualifier. So we added party-based JRPGs, which is still fairly broad, but covers pretty much an entire envelope of all of the JRPGs that I love. It's got the Personas in it. It's got your Final Fantasies and your Dragon Quests. It's got your Xenoblade Chronicles.
Except for Dragon Quest 1, I believe, where you're just one guy. The original Dragon Warrior, you're just one guy.
Yeah, we'll find out when I play that. But I really love, and I mean, these can be turn-based, they can be whatever you want to describe the Xenoblade Chronicles combat system as.
MMO action.
Auto attack. I mean, my personal favorite of this genre has always been Final Fantasy XII. Just for
is that the one with the programmed?
How dare you call it weird? It's called
weird
the
in a good
Gambit
way.
system. It's called the Gambit system. And it basically is just computer programming where you program all of your characters to have a set of conditions. If this happens, do this. If this happens, do this. And you prioritize them in a way.
Fucking game devs pawning off the work to the player. We couldn't be bothered to program these if-then statements. So by golly, you're going to do it. And you're going to have fun.
It's awesome.
You're going to have fun.
It's incredible to go through and be like, okay, I need my team to be more focused on damage, so I'm going to move all of my attacking gambits. You gotta play Unicorn Overlord, because that's how the battle systems work. It's you've got the RTS thing where you're going through a map and sending squads to confront things, take objectives, confront enemy squads. But then when your squad and enemy squad meet, they're turn-based battles, but it's all automated, and it's based off of you have conditions for each character in each squad to prioritize front row, back row, buffs at this threshold, do this type of thing. So there's a lot of fine-tuning of management, but it's all this kind of programming that you're doing. So I think one of the aspects of what the broader the JRPG part of the genre that I love is just that the stories they tell. There's usually the broader sense of the story is always high school kids take on God at some point in time, essentially. And I just kind of love the way that these games interact with the characters. I love the way that they can pull at your heartstrings. There's definitely some fun jank moments. Everyone loves Xenoblade Chronicles 2 when, Rex is screaming, Pyra! And Mithra.
I think from like a
repeated voice lines, that's another fun.
From like our kind of unique lens here, I like a lot of Western RPGs, right? Don't get me wrong, I like them much more than you do, Matt. But in terms of narrative, and it's not that they're not that JRPGs are unwilling to interrogate dark problems.
They're much JRPGs have. Persona 5 opens with some pretty.
Yeah, but as a whole, they're much more hopeful in a lot of ways. They will overcome the darkness, the traumatic things, and from a kind of a political perspective, that they are, and it's a lot goes down to Western versus Eastern values. That Western RPGs are very much of the vein of the radical individual, the hero, the singular hero is going to save the day. That the world's problems are intractable and can only be achieved by one individual chosen by God to overcome the odds. Whereas JRPGs are about
the power of friendship.
Yes, like that's the meme, but it's about community. That structures are the structures that will infringe upon our flourishing as human beings are not set in stone. These are things to be actively challenged, and that the only way that they can be really combated is through communal struggle. Is that it is about getting your party full of friends and giving God
changing
the
hearts
finger.
of evil.
Right. So they're much more hopeful in that sense. They are much more as fanciful as any well, this is just anime waifu slop type thing.
Okay, how dare you?
but in a lot of ways, when you strip those bits away, they're more grounded in that sense. That they are more tethered to a reality that we can identify with than none of us are Geralt, or that are gonna
again. How dare you?
That are gonna save the day
with my silver sword and kill werewolves. It's actually me just killing the local rural dogs.
So I absolutely I get the it's probably been within the last 5 or 6 years for me that I've become much more appreciative of JRPGs, and to the point where I think that they are the superior. That Western RPGs have a much higher hurdle that they have to get over, and that JRPGs just start at their own kind of floor are just much better politically, and their stories are more approachable because of it. Characters are better because of it.
Yeah. Plus, whom amongst us hasn't thought about, banding together with their friends to kill God?
Let's take down the church, folks.
Hell yeah.
All right. So, what genre would you like to take down?
To take it down, to wrap it up, to put a bow on it, I decided that competitive first-person shooters was going to be my topic of disdain. And there's multiple layers to it, because to start with, the competitive nature, it brings out the worst in me, and I understand that, and that's a self-retrospective part.
Good for you for being personally reflective. These games are toxic, and they make me toxic.
Yeah. It's one of those, I'm a fairly competitive person when it's brought out properly, and I don't need that from a game genre that is full of people who make me angry, is the polite term. And then just the secondary part of that, first person shooters, it also again kind of falls into that weird category of if I want to go shoot a gun, I'll just go to a gun range and rent a rifle and shoot downrange for a little bit and get my fill and move on. I do live in America.
I was wondering where you're going to go with that one. You go to the range, yeah.
It's just I
hate how sweaty they are. That's it for me, basically.
Well, it's just also it's a genre that hasn't really I don't want to be mean and say evolved, but it hasn't really evolved since it came.
Would you say that the combat hasn't evolved, folks?
Am I making a Halo combat evolved joke? But more or less, I played the original Call of Duty that came out on PlayStation 2, and yes, the graphics have gotten better. Yes, they've incorporated more elements into the game, and then they took them away, and then they added them back. and they made sliding and wall running a thing.
Yeah, basically the only thing that they've iterated on is movement.
And monetization.
Making strides there for sure. For me, it was always the competitive nature of it made me feel shitty, because not necessarily that I became toxic, but again, it's the sweatiness. It was like I was never unemployed enough to get good at competitive shooters. Like you're never going to compete with the people who play that nonstop. It's their only game that they ever play.
That's a whole big thing about it, was like when I was really heavily into Overwatch, which falls into a weird, it's a first-person competitive game, does shooting aspect, but it's got MOBA elements to it. But like when I was really heavily into Overwatch, it was the only thing I was playing. And it was essentially a game that I was no-lifing. When I would get home from work, I would eat, and then I would play Overwatch for 6 hours. And it's like, it's such an unhealthy relationship to have with the game. And they build that into the models of all of these modern competitive games, where you've got your FOMO battle passes that you need to constantly be doing so that you can, get your new skins so that you can stay on top of everything. And you need
you can stunt on,
yeah. And you need to, if you don't finish your competitive matches in a season, like in your rank, if you lose rank, like now you're a shitty person and you're not good enough anymore, and you need to get back on the grind and try harder next time. Like there's an entire like mental aspect of these games where they're designed to like suck you in and try to steal your time so that you will spend money on them, even if they are free to play, which is the entire like gamut of how it works. Like I have a coworker who plays a fuck ton of Valorant, and every time he tries to talk to me about Valorant, I tell him how badly I judge him before walking away.
Good. Make him feel shame.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie and say like seeing how like Arc Raiders has performed, like I'm glad that is, something that people have and they can enjoy, that's, aiding in the downfall of COD.
But that's also been another like unemployment simulator, right? Where the discourse surrounding that game has become so, toxic is not really the right word, but it's like really annoying in the sense that like all content creators are talking about is like, oh, the game is good, but it needs more content. It needs all this. And people are like, yo, I'm not like you. I'm not playing this game for 12 hours a day, every day. I'm not even at level 10 yet. What the fuck are you talking about?
The content creator
you do not speak for...
They crashed out on Twitter over Arc Raiders not being nominated for Game of the Year.
The two that are major ones have been Shroud and Myth.
Shroud, that was the one.
Are the two that are like have just been so on this, like, yeah, the game is both the best thing in the world and not good enough anymore because they're not catering to the content creators who are just
that's another aspect of competitive shooters that becomes a problem, is a lot of them want to take a step into the esports world and become that next level of true competitive multiplayer. And the problem you run into balancing issues. Where do you balance specifically around your esports players who are practicing and, always with each other and have a set team and have plays and rosters to run through? Or do you balance it around your random players who are going to be jumping in, hoping to, get a team that works, and, it never does.
When we were doing our voting for the Game Awards for the channel, I was thinking about, like, when we got to like the esports and like the esports athlete of the year type thing, I was thinking about how shitty besides getting paid millions of dollars for those that are highly successful.
I was going to say, it's not as many of them as you would think.
It's not. But like, even the ones who are just making a living off of it, that's still pretty cool. And that's still got to feel good. Yeah. But like, imagine how bad it must feel on a personal level to, again, turn your favorite hobby into a job that you then learn to hate.
Thank you.
That's like, do professional esports athletes play other games? Do they have time to do that? Do they have the mental space to try different types of games? Or it's just like, no, they're like athletes. They're studying tape. They are. Yeah. Their whole world is League of Legends. How depressing does that have to be that is your life?
I remember back when Overwatch League was at its peak in its first and second season, and there was a discussion around, I think it was the New York Excelsior, which was like the team to beat in that season. And they were saying that they basically like every day practiced for like 12 hours or something along those lines. And then they would review film for an additional 2 hours. It's like, that is such a full day And
That
like,
does not sound fun.
even like
No.
admittedly
No.
as a college athlete where like you have classes and stuff that you still have to work around, like I think my worst days were an hour of workout, 3 hours of practice, an hour of film review. Like that was on top of classes and eating and, you know, existing otherwise. Like that was our worst possible day. And that was not every day, because film review was only 3 days a week and lifting was only 2 days a week in season.
So you know what is fun though is deciding the overall best and worst genre. And we were, before recording, we're like, oh, are we gonna like actually rank these type of things? But I think we can largely actually, based on the consensus of the panel here, basically decide what are our channel favorites and least favorites, the favorites and the foes.
And Metroidvanias.
No, I honestly, I think it's pretty clear that like Souls-likes and action RPGs are the universal #1 champion of the pod, and that simulations are the sims are the channel foe. So we don't really need to vote. It's all pretty clear.
I'm glad
and
you
obvious
went there,
to me.
because I was preparing mentally to be overridden and have like Metroidvanias or platformers be the channel hated.
Nope, we all dislike Sims in some fashion. So, like, each of us has that as one of our categories, just a different flavor of it. So, so it works. It fits fine. I think that's it. We've decided it. We have nailed down what every genre is and which ones are good and which ones are bad. And only the ones that we like are worth playing. And we do judge you if you play the other ones. I'm just kidding, folks. Enjoy your games. Don't be a dick to people who don't like the games that you don't like.
With one caveat. Unless they like Roblox, then hate them.
Yes, because they're probably a child predator at that point. If you are not 12 years old, you should not be playing Roblox.
Right. 12 and under, you can play Roblox.
Yes. All right, folks. That's going to do it for us today. I would normally, plug what the lineup for content is, but I honestly can't remember our release order because we are recording multiple times each weekend, these first 2 weeks, and one will be going out. The other one's going to be held for later. It's like we're recording our end of year pod tomorrow, even though that's going to be the last one we do. I don't exactly remember the order that these are coming out. I think about it. This is going to come out first. You're going to see this first. Then I think we're going to do our reaction to Game Award announcements. Then
we're doing your pod.
Yeah.
And then Awards.
I think that's coming out after. We're going to record those at the same time, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to put that one out after. And then end of year pod, where our version of the Game Awards, the true Game Awards. So I think that's what it is, but there may be some tweaks here and there. All right, folks, go play your games, enjoy them, and get off Roblox. Yeah, that's the message of today. All right, we will see you in the next one. Bye bye.